Welcome to the StockMiner.com studios. I'm your StockMiner Brian Johnson, and after all of the hubbub in the FOMC and the elections, the markets really didn't go anywhere. They started with a gap up and pretty much stayed at that same level most of the day. So we got a move at the beginning of the day. It was a quick move to the upside, and then it leveled out. Now this is very, very common right before and into the Fed speaking. So not a huge surprise by any great measure here to see what we saw today. And now we wait for election results to come in tonight. I don't know if it's going to make any kind of a difference. I'm sure it will. Point being here, we are still neutral to bullish on our stance. The markets continue to move their way upwards, albeit very, very slowly. So opportunities here and there for you intraday traders. Once again, before the swing traders, still nothing yet. We did not get any breaks above the levels we've been watching, and that is about 11,250. You can see the high here being a 11,219 was the high today. And then, of course, the lows are way down here. We're not even flirting with those at that point. So the big hammer candle we saw on the 60-minute chart as of yesterday did play out today as it ran up into the Fed speech, and then a lot of times the Fed will come out and talk. There'll be some volatility. We didn't even see that today. No big surprises. I mean, what's the Fed going to do? The rates are at zero. They've been at zero. They're going to remain at zero. I don't really exactly know, what the Fed can possibly do with interest rates at this point. The only thing that they really have a choice to do is eventually raise them. But they don't see that on the horizon, and neither do I at this point. That might be a little ways out before they decide they have to do that. So, as it is, you can see we are still moving sideways. This is still a high base formation. We are still above the 20-day moving average, and we are still below 11,250. Really going nowhere. So, waiting for a more pronounced push up and through one of these areas before we want to take our breaks. The best thing for the bulls, if they want to try to break this, would be a gap. They've really just been beating their heads against this thing up here, so a gap would be the most logical move. Watch for that, maybe even potentially tomorrow to start the day at least. Then we'll see if it actually holds. NASDAQ on a 60-minute, same thing, gap up, run sideways, really didn't go anywhere. Flirting now with the 2150 area. Talked about the 2140 to 2150 area. We did get just barely above that. But overall, holding right at the 2150-ish area now. So that overhead area puts us at and just above this big line we had drawn in the sand, which was sitting right around 2140, I think, is where we figured this was at. So 2140 will be the new level to hold for the bulls. As we look at the weekly, still straight up, looking very nice so far this week. Staying above this high level here, way back at 2060. That's quite a ways away from here. So as long as it holds up here, this still can push higher, just as it did back here. Look what it did here. See that little teeny run to the upside? It was one small candle after another, made for very, very tedious trading for a number of weeks. So wait for this thing to break these lower levels before you even start to think about shorting the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ is still the strongest indice out there to be working off of. SPX on a 60-minute, look, hit that blue line. Remember that little overhead blue line we kept talking about here? Yeah, funny how that works. Working very well so far. So any more moves to the upside, still, by the way, have not broken to new highs. 1196.14 is still the high up here. We have not broken to any new highs. But any break above that area, then we clearly do make it above this area. Then we start looking at I'd probably say 1205, 1208 area, something up in that. We might have to pull back a little bit to clear more room to the upside. This blue line has held extremely well. So it's going to have to do another one of these pushes to get up and above it. At this point, guys, I really think that any push up and above this blue line is going to be short-lived. I don't think it's going to make it for too many days in a row. Once it gets up and above, or if it gets up and above this blue line, this is really the area to be watching very closely. On the daily here, you can see as well the little push we had today. Now, it does look bullish, and it is. For all intents and purposes, we are up for the day, but we haven't broken the new highs quite yet, so we'll watch that very closely. Of course, above that, 1200, 1210, 1220, so, those areas are the next ones to be watching. Weekly, same thing. We are now just starting to crawl our way above the 200. We actually closed above it by about 40 cents today, but this is a weekly candle, so we'll wait and see where it closes for the week. That's the most important part. VIX, this was very interesting. Second day, and we held above the top of this blue line. Yep, I had to look at it pretty closely there, but you can clearly see it is still above that blue line. So we have had a break of this falling wedge. As long as it stays above here, this is where we have to be very cautious. Now, we can continue to follow this blue line down with the VIX. Down, 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 down. But barring any really major move up in the markets and or a very quick move down in the markets, we could see this thing finally get up and above that 2350, which is really what we're watching for. A break above that, I really think then that might spur the more major pullback that we've been waiting for in the indices themselves. But curious to see not one but two closes above it. We've been getting above it with wicks, but we have not been able to close above it. Trace that back. This is kind of fun to watch now. So now it's got my interest in a big way. Weekly, same type of a thing, starting to kind of show. Look at here, even on a weekly. If I took that in a lot closer, you could see that we're just sitting on top of that blue line, and I might try to do that for tomorrow's video. Bring that in a little closer. Apple on a 60, huge push up. I said above 307. That was the point to look for a long. Sure enough, we got that break today. Took us up to about 310, closing at 309. Either way, you made a couple bucks on that trade. Hope you guys were watching for it. So this resolved perfectly. If it starts to crash back down for some reason, this is your line of support right here. Any potential or any continued move up, watch this 314, 315 area for your next major level of overhead resistance. That, by the time tomorrow's candle opens, should coincide with this blue line up here as well. So we're going to be watching for the blue line to hold on a retest, and or that 315, 314, 315 area for overhead resistance on Apple. To the downside, of course, the blue line we were talking about. Okay, move up, pull back for 2 weeks. Not done with this week yet, so kind of hard to pass any judgment on here. However, looks very good. From a technical analysis standpoint, that is nothing but a pullback, which is still bullish for Apple. So we are seeing we were seeing a little bit of weakness on the 60-minute. There's maybe a little bit there on the daily, but the weeklies look fine. Weekly still looks fine for the time being. If we can get back up and over that, 310, 312 area, I'd be watching, of course, then the 314, 315 area for your trading. Back above 315, and we could blow this away and head to new highs. I would guess that we would at least maybe retest or come very close to retesting the highs, if not getting past it. FAS, no break today. Look at this. Dancing around with the top of this thing. Okay? Will it hold this time? Yeah, I don't know. But I'm not going to gamble, not going to guess. When it breaks, and then I'll take my entry. Above 2280 now, and below $1 million, or below zero, I guess, for a short. It's way down here for a short, guys. I'm not interested in any kind of a short. If you want to take a more speculative short, it's below all of these moving averages here. But you got to be careful. Make sure you got your stop in place if you do. Otherwise, to the long side, above 22.80 is not a bad place to get in. Above $23, as always. What we've been watching on the daily here fits very well too. Above 23 and below 21. Those are still my areas to be watching to the short side. Still's trapped within the symmetrical triangles. Not much to see there. FAZ down to the bottom side of its channel. So still watching for breaks below 12.30 for a short here. The long play, it's really up to you. I still like the bigger areas of above 13 and below 1175 for the time being. So sideways, look at this stuff, guys. For you FAZ, FAS lovers, just not much to do. Not much to do the last few days. Wait for the breaks. Most important that you do that. Show the patience. Otherwise, if you want to dabble in it, great. But be very cautious with your position sizes. That'll do it for today's video. FOMC, we had the big gap up, the big run up as we normally see into the meeting. And then nothing happened afterwards. This is like the Well, this has been actually very common. Ever since the rate hit 0%, this has actually been a very common to see during FOMC. What else are they going to do? Really, the rate's at 0. It's not like they're going to drop the rates. The only direction they can go is up with the rates, and they're not going to do that yet. So that'll be a ways off yet, I think, before they start thinking about making that kind of a move, because they know how that'll affect the stocks and the dollar and such. So it is what it is. We're still sitting up here at these higher levels. Wait for those more major breaks above here, below there, before you take your moves tomorrow. And we will see you tomorrow night. Bye.